FIFA has introduced new regulations for football agents. But what does it mean for the agents? Hello, I'm Dominic Walker. Welcome to JMW's Inside Man YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and keep the conversation going in the comments section as well. So the world governing body of football, FIFA, has introduced new regulation of football agents back in 2015. They changed the regulation and new regulations are now in force. Stephen Taylor Heath is the head of sports law here at JMW Solicitors. So, Stephen, what does this new regulation mean for agents?
Well, FIFA have imposed agent regulations over many years, but they significantly relaxed their grip on agents several years ago and now have moved again to taking significant control over agent activity. So new regulations were approved at the FIFA Congress in December 16th. And there's a transitory phase where effectively from yesterday, part of the regulations come into force. And the meat of the regulations, which are basically governing agent activity, will come into force at the end of October of this year. So between now and then, agents effectively have to register as agents, and the football associations, national football associations, have to implement rules that are consistent with these regulations. So, for example, the Football Association has intermediary regulations at the moment, but FIFA don't recognise this concept of an intermediary. Effectively, if you're an intermediary and registered with the FA at the moment, you're going to have to register as an agent and pass an exam. And the FA intermediary regulations are going to have to be compatible with the FIFA regulations. And in some respects, they're not at the moment. So the FA will have to impose these new regulations.
And there's going to be cap on the fees that agents can earn as well, isn't there? Which presumably won't be particularly popular.
Well, at the moment, the FA rather fudge that issue because they recommend that an agent's commission should be 3%, whereas the FIFA regulations say that the commission will be 3% if the player earns a salary over a particular figure of $200,000. There is also 3% in relation to a cap on where you're acting for a buying club, and there's a different commission rate in relation to a selling club. Now, those are going to be mandatory caps. And that's quite significant. And that's something that the Football Forum that represents agents, for example, is rebelling against, perhaps understandably for commercial reasons. FIFA have set out some fairly lofty objectives in the preamble to their regulations with regard to ensuring competition, fairness, ethics, and what have you. So they will say that all of these regulations are being brought in for the greater good of the game. The agents themselves will obviously have to look at the effect this has on their business. But as I say, there's a transitory phase. So if an agent currently has a contract with a player that is not compatible with these regulations, they can still rely on that contract. But most agents' contracts have a maximum length of 2 years. So when the agent comes to enter into a new contract, they will have to have a contract that complies with these rules and regulations. What is also very interesting to me is that what FIFA say is that the Football Association and other associations' new regulations must comply with the FIFA regulations unless a particular national law imposes a more stricter threshold on agent activity, in which case that country's regulations can be more stricter. But what it doesn't allow for is a situation to depart from the regulations where, in fact, that country's law is effectively inconsistent with the FIFA regulations. So, for example, if it was unlawful to put a cap on the agent's fee, in theory, that national association would have to still impose that cap in their regulations, which is where you could have some issues in some jurisdictions.
And naturally, agents' focus is on recruiting the best players, getting the best deal for those players with a club. How can you and the sports team at JMW Solicitors help agents to sort of navigate this new regulation?
Well, there is no doubt about it. The agents will have to be up to speed with these new regulations because it's been going for quite some time that these regulations were coming into force. They may have, so to speak, taken their eye off the ball in relation to actually looking at what this means for their business. Some of these regulations are to the benefit of the agents. For example, under the FA intermediary regulations at the moment, you can't charge a fee to a player who's under 18. The new rule in relation to minors is that you can only have an agent contract with a player if it's within 6 months of them being able to sign their first professional contract, but you can then charge a fee even if they're under 18. However, there are lots of other areas that are different to current practices in relation to minors. There are concepts in relation to a player, in theory, being able to represent themselves and the agent not receiving a fee, whereas at the moment, a player can represent themselves under the contract, but the agent still gets a fee. And also, what a phrase that lawyers often refer to in relation to contracts is that the party could terminate the contract for what's called just cause. Now, that's fairly open-ended as a concept and means there could be significant disputes between players and agents. So they do need to make sure that they're up to speed in relation to these regulations. They obviously need to make sure that they register. There are some exemptions from registration if, for example, you're registered under the old regulations as an agent, but you need to make sure that you register so that you can carry on being an agent after the cut-off point. You also need to make sure that your contracts are compatible with the regulations. And at JMW, the sports group that I head at JMW, we have all the requisite professional knowledge to be able to assist agents in relation to compatibility with these regulations.
Stephen, thank you for your insight. And if you'd like to contact Stephen and the sports law team here at JMW Solicitors, you can email insideman@jmw.co.uk or call 0161 82 81 999. Please also subscribe to the JMW Inside Man YouTube channel for the latest legal news, hints and tips. I'm Dominic Walker, JMW's Inside Man.